Okay, so now I'm going to start working into the area that is my focal point, which is the center of this daffodil. I went back and I redrew the very, very center and created the leading lines that are the bumps and the kind of ridges that around that center part that kind of come from the center area and move outward. Now I'm erasing out highlights in the edge of the center part because I need that area to be really nice and contrasty and pop because it's much closer dimensionally and spatially than the petals, the larger petals around it, and also even the center of it. So that outer ring needs to really pop and be contrasty to create illusion of depth and to also create the focal point and path that I need the viewer's eye to move. So I want to make sure that that is a strong area. My eye movement is going to kind of wrap from that center and then around to the outer leaves. So I want to make sure that I'm directing the viewer's path of eye movement through the piece in that way. So now I'm taking my 6B. It's super, super sharp, and I'm looking for ways that I can create kind of like systems of mark making to imitate the texture that's on that area of the daffodil. So while I am very closely observing it, I'm not necessarily making each and every little ridge like exactly how it looks in the daffodil. We're on a timeline here. This is a project that we have like a week and like 4 days to work on and to submit. So I did pick a pretty complex subject here. And so I just want to come up with systems. And so I'm thinking about textures and mark making that I can use to emulate that without like making super duper close observation. So I'm just adding some hatched lines in there to create dimension and shadows and contrast. I'm using my 6B. It's super duper sharp. So that way I can get really nice fine lines in there for those textures. And that's working out great because it's creating contrast. The dark next to the light that I just erased out is creating contrast that's going to catch the viewer's eye. And you can already see that it's popping more against those petals. So look for the area in your still life where it's closest to you, that it's in your focal point, that you need to add kind of more detail and texture and punch to, and then go in there and kind of observe and come up with systems of how you can imitate textures that are there and make sure that you make it really pop. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the outer petals, and here I'm again using systems to come up with different textures that I see in there, and I'm seeing like longer kind of hatched lines in those areas. I'm seeing places where there are shadows on like ridges or areas that pop in those petals, and so I'm still taking like a nice sharp pencil, 6B or 2B or HB to kind of block in those shadows. If you're working in super duper light areas, you can go ahead and switch to your 6H or your 2H. But again, I'm creating systems to create those textures. And I want to add kind of more detail in those areas, especially where I want the viewer's eye to move and kind of wrap around the composition. If you have an area that needs to be lightened up, like an edge of something that needs a brighter pop of a highlight, go ahead and go in there and erase it out. And you can always kind of work back into that area, especially if you need to add more contrast to kind of texture. You can go in and kind of just create that eye movement, really force that eye movement to happen by the amount of detail and where you add contrast in your piece. And that will also help you build illusion of depth. So okay, this leaf needs some work. I'm gonna have to clean up edges of forms just by taking more graphite around them, erasing out stray lines, tidying them up and making them nice and tight. So I'll have to go through the whole drawing with that, but there you can see I started to do it with that leaf. Now I'm working on the reflections in the jar. So reflective subjects are gonna work best if you put darks next to lights and really erase highlights out and really pay attention to how the highlight travels across and over the surface. So I'm erasing out the highlight on the edge of the glass there. I'm erasing out other highlights in the jar and really paying attention to how they curve and go along with the form. Just like as if you were shading, you want to make sure that that happens. And so that highlight that I just am putting in there, you can see goes across and in front of those stems. And now I'm putting a line next to it to show how contrasting it is. Okay, so go ahead and add texture and detail to your still life.